what if we want to get into editing some of these? So we've changed the way some of the interactive editing happens, and to go into that mode, we had to change a little bit about how we can launch into data sets. So one of the things we did make was the modification to the entity selection. So historically, you've always had to fully encompass the particular polygon that represents your entity in order to get that entity to be selected. So we wanted to make it a little bit easier, so we threw in some selection options. And one of the options that was in here is to be able to change it so your polygons are now done by containment. So if you go into your GeoCue options, and I just got to there by my selections, I just modified it over, and now what happens is when I select inside of a polygon, it will actually select that particular polygon and launches up the step for it. So it makes things a little bit easier to click on. And we did that because we wanted to do what we call quick launch. And what quick launch allows us to do is to get in and actually configure so that when I do this click, that it will not only launch it, but it's going to select it, add it to our working segment for a particular checklist step. If that checklist step can be run and is ready to be run, in this case here, my edit and tear scan step, it will launch us into that mode. So to do that, I had to create a quick launch configuration that tells me what all that information is. So what I do is I go into my quick launch manager and I create this direct drive and tear scan. And then to make things easier, instead of collecting on these big lists and sorting through to find working segments that I'm working with and all the other things, I just picked the entity that I wanted. So if you notice here, I selected it before I went into this dialog. You can select it any time after that as well. So I did that. I hit the little wizard button, and the little wizard button brings up this dialog that says you want to run the edit and running tear scan step. And the reason it knows that is because when I selected my entity, the next step that I want to run is the edit and running tear scan step. So I click OK, and that configures so that I'm now going to be running that particular step. So I can close that out. I select my configuration, turn my progress mode on, and what I can do is I can launch this in two modes. One is when it's just in quick launch mode. When I select a particular entity, what it's going to do is it selects it and adds it to my working set. So if you look here, here's my working set count. I have one entity in there now, and I have the edit and running tear scan step selected. So this is basically done the combine of select and add to my working set, or the equivalent of using the yellow selection. If on the other hand I actually have it to set the mode in progress turned on, so if that's toggled on and I pick on this 117, then what's going to happen is that 117 is going to be selected, and within our MicroStation session now, you're going to see here's 117 loaded, and here are the read-only entities that are in those blocks that are circle around the particular entity that I selected. So it's launched me automatically into there, and if I had tried to pick a block that somebody else was already working with, you know, all the things that we had put the working set in there to do in terms of catching to make sure you didn't have multiple people trying to grab something, it would throw you the exception to say, hey, you can't do this because so-and-so has it open on this particular machine, so that you can see that.